Hello, Rachel.
Hey, Ligia, how are
How are
you?
you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Yeah.
So happy that you are back in the Coaches Next Door podcast.
Thanks for having
Um,
me.
and I was just sharing with you that you had this beautiful pictures on your LinkedIn, and I said, "Oh my God, you need to use these pictures because they are really cool, and they give a nice vibe." And this, I want this episode to be exactly that, to bring a certain vibe to people.
Okay.
I think we are sometimes too serious. We are sometimes too focused on the boring side of life, and I think it's necessary that we also connect a little bit more with a good vibe, with a nice conversation. So, and I know that you say about yourself that you are a chat box.
Yeah. Professional
So,
chatterbox. That's my job title. Professional chatterbox. How do you summarize it in 2 words? That is
that's
my job.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm open. I'm open to receive that today, and see where we got with that title, with that job title. So how that happened? Because you were already in the podcast, but was some even maybe I don't know year ago. I don't know. I don't have any clue. But it was a while. So I want also people to know, who you are and what you do. So how did you got to that job title?
I love that question. I can't remember what I told in the podcast before, but
Yeah.
like I'd always been a chatterbox. And that was always on my school reports. Like my mum would go to school, she'd come home and she'd say, "Oh, you're doing well in maths, you're doing well in English, but you talk too much." And on my report card, it always says, "Oh, Rachel's a chatterbox, Rachel's a chatterbox." And now I've kind of turned it around to make it something positive and not something
Yeah.
that is critical, because that's what I love doing. It's not just about talking, I love connecting with people.
Yeah.
I always have done. And before the pandemic, I was working in travel and tourism. I loved it. I worked for Eurail, taking people, people could travel all around Europe with a rail pass. And I lost my job at the beginning of COVID because obviously people stopped traveling. And
Yeah.
that was a real moment for me to think, okay, who am I? And what do I want to do? Because I was in a position where I wasn't actually that happy anymore because
Yeah.
I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I was sitting behind the computer a lot, crunching numbers and working with the computer. And I was like, I want to work with people. And a few years prior to that, I'd taken up a hobby, which
Mm.
was stand-up comedy. And that was really my passion. And
Yeah.
I had wanted to do comedy forever and just thought, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. But when I confided in somebody, they were like, no, you should do it. And I started doing comedy and it turned into a little hobby,
Yeah.
and it's turned into pretty much my life. And so that was at the sort of pivot point where I was like, what am I going to do? I
Yeah.
don't want to go back into the corporate world 24, like the 5 days a week. I don't want to have an office job. I want to have a job where I can talk and connect with people. And that's when I switched and actually started becoming, doing more and more comedy
Yeah.
and hosting gigs, and that's how it started. So that's my main thing, and I always tell people my main sort of job is comedy, but everything connected to comedy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not only do I perform comedy, I host comedy shows, I also host other corporate events.
Yeah.
I also coach comedians, I give lessons, I mentor talent groups of comedians. And then I do comedy walks, which is a walking tour with a light-hearted feel. And I coach people on public speaking. So everything to do with
Yeah.
comedy and talking in public is what I
Yeah.
do.
But the thing is, um, how was to become stand-up comedy? I don't know if you call yourself a stand-up comedy performer. How was that being a woman, being a mother? So you were at that time in an age that well, I don't know, is a lot of comments about our age, right?
Mhm.
So how was that?
I think it's interesting. Like, well, first of all, trying to juggle being a mother at the time was tough because the kids were a lot younger. I
Yeah,
mean, I've been doing this for nearly about 8.5 years now.
yeah,
So my son would have been like 8 years old, something like
yeah,
that, 7 or 8. And so I had to get babysitters if I needed to go out and just sort of juggle. So it started off not doing it too much, maybe a few times a week. And in the beginning, it was really good because I talked a lot about being a mum.
yeah,
Um, I talked a lot about having kids and a couple of people said to me they found my comedy quite mumsy.
yeah,
And what's really interesting is that's I kind of made a conscious effort to move away from that because it's not. I just found I'm more than that. I'm more than just a mum. So of
yeah,
course I mention my kids now in my comedy set, but I
yeah,
feel like my comedy is much more authentic and it's about me and my sort of observations
yeah.
and life and so yeah, it's sort of evolved from that and away from the kids and me in my own right. And being a woman in comedy and being an older woman, yeah, it comes with its
Don't
challenges.
call yourself old, please.
Well, no, compared to all the young sort of 20-year-olds that are starting, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But what was the main thing about being first that, right? Because for instance, I don't know, but I don't know if a man will play a lot with, his family or whatever, they will call it papa performer or whatever, So I also think it's a lot of a kind of a stigma in that sense, because if a woman is talking about their family, then they are, oh yeah, too mommy. But if a father is talking about that, oh wow, what a great guy, so it's a little bit of a different stuff. But also, uh, uh, yeah, being a woman and entering the show, I think the show business is a place that sometimes, I don't know, is a lot of also preconceptions what that means, for a woman to enter that, and what a woman needs to do and be, I think.
yeah, yeah. But I still hear people go, "Oh, women aren't funny." It's still a thing because
Yeah,
it's a male-dominated world. But
yeah,
I actually quite like that. I quite enjoyed that when I started comedy
yeah,
because very often, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, but very often I was the only woman on the bill.
yeah,
And again, not a good thing, but for me it was nice because I was the only woman. I stood out.
yeah,
You in a lineup of straight white men and you're
yeah,
one woman, people remember you. So that was a
yeah,
real positive thing for me. But even today I still face people that say, "Oh, women aren't funny," but I don't let it bother me. You can't generalize a whole
no,
gender. But it is still a male dominated world, but things are changing. And here in the Netherlands, I'm seeing more and more women come into it and
yeah,
bring in their different perspectives. And that's the nice thing. It gives you an opportunity to talk about who you are, and sort of topics that are, sort of personal to you.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
get to know people and from all different angles,
yeah,
and women bring a different perspective for men.
yeah. What do you see when, for instance, you are mentoring or even coaching people that want to become? What do you see that is the biggest, I don't know, the biggest fear or the biggest doubt? What 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 do you think, if you can generalize? I don't know. Of course, everyone has a little bit of, their
Yeah.
personal thing. But what is the biggest fear, let's say, that people have when they want to start and they question themselves if they can do it?
A lot of it's the performance side. I
Mm,
get a lot of people. So I teach stand-up comedy and I also teach public speaking.
yeah,
I find that when people come to me for public speaking, very often they're just nervous standing in front of people. And they've got something to say, but they don't really know that they've got something to say. So they don't believe that they've got a good message, and
yeah,
and so there's a lot of insecurities there. A lot of it is insecurities about have what I've got to say, is it interesting, and secondly, can I stand in front of all these people? That's really scary. Everyone's looking at me. That's the biggest thing I'd say with public speaking. With the comedy, I find I get a lot of people that have got some great thoughts in their head. They've got some original material, but it's actually bringing it to the stage, which they find really hard.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of nerves and a lot of I see a lot of good writers. I've been coaching a lot of very, very good writers.
But then
But
putting
then
it out
the stage, yeah,
the
exactly.
stage. Yeah, because it's incredible, right? And I was writing a post this morning because my daughter, yeah, that you know, my middle one, she's a funny character, right? And Adam did a mess, and I didn't see it. And then she comes to me and she said, "Mom, I don't want to break your bubble, but Adam did a mess." And I was like, "Oh man, that was the most, gorgeous and subtle way of saying you're going to be, really surprised what happened there." Um, and I was because she said that way, and she has that ability to present things and to talk and to express herself. I was thinking, when when became a thing for us to communicate, when became when we entered this place that now when someone is communicating in a good way, with the message, the style, everything, we appreciate that. And I'm not talking about really professional people, okay? I'm talking about this day to day. And I think that I'm curious about your thoughts. When did we lost it? When did we lost the ability to, just talk and present and accept that sometimes, yes, we are in a mini stage, when even we are telling a story to our friends, and the friends are looking at us, and I see people getting super red and super embarrassed. And when did we lost it?
Did we ever have it though? I don't
I
know.
think so. For
I don't-
instance,
Yeah,
I think my grandparents, for instance, they were storytellers.
yeah, yeah. Maybe it's a generational thing then. I know in schools now they're putting a lot more emphasis on children having to present and
Yeah,
presenting their ideas, and I think that's a really good thing. But I do think there's a generation of people that are scared to stand in front of other people, and
yeah,
are scared to be seen.
yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah,
also think that just even in today's sort of modern world, and you think about things like, for example, I don't know, you've got two, daughters which have got phones, or like I'm just thinking of
yeah,
your oldest daughter, right? She's got a mobile phone. How many times does she actually make a phone call?
yeah, true.
Like people,
They speak a lot. I hear them video calls. I don't see them calling, but I see them doing a lot of video calls. Uh,
okay, so they do that because a lot
yeah,
of people now they're just texting each other the whole time, maybe leaving voice notes, but there's that sort of interaction.
yeah,
The,
yeah,
the phone goes, and they're like, what? They don't know what to do with it. No one uses the phone to actually phone
yeah,
people.
yeah. It's true. It's true.
I think
But do you think that because I'm also, this weekend for me was really realizing that we are we are made of relationships and communication, right? So the way we connect and the way that we connect is with communication. Mm? And I, every time I see more and more, um, really people, really, people sometimes from my age even, struggling. Like, how do I say what I want to say? How do I make this, relevant? How do I make this that I want to say this, but I don't want to hurt the other person?
yeah.
And these are legitimate thoughts, right? But why people get so uncomfortable on doing that? What is your thoughts?
I think
Because you meet a lot of people.
yeah, I do, and a lot of people are just worried about being judged, and a lot of people worried about being making mistakes.
Oh,
That's a huge thing. It's like, what if I make a mistake? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I forget what I'm going to say?
yeah,
What if I stumble over my words? And
Yeah.
actually, it doesn't matter, it can happen.
Yeah.
And that to me is the beauty of a live performance. If you watch a Netflix special or you watch something that's been pre-recorded, you won't see these live moments because they'll all be edited out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you go to a live comedy show, a live theatre, I love live theatre,
Yeah.
live comedy, public speaking, just and like someone presenting, giving a lecture, whatever. It's live, anything can happen. I think that's quite exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. And also you feel more the human there.
Yeah,
Right? You feel like, oh, okay, this can happen to also me or anyone, because of course you are also in a daily basis facing something that I find it, maybe because I'm not a easy laughter person. Um, so when you do a show, for instance, you also see that some audience, even sometimes by, oh, I find this funny, I'm going to laugh. Do you see people like looking around like it's allowed, or can I laugh so loud, or these kind of things?
yeah. Sometimes, and I think this is a really good question because I've become fascinated with the whole psychology of like the room setup when it comes to comedy, right? And I've read a lot on comedy, and also there was this question recently. Somebody said, "How should I set my room up? Should I set
Mm,
it up in theatre style, or should I set it up with tables and chairs?" And there's almost this sort of thing that if people are sitting close together in sort of theatre style, then if one person laughs, it's almost infectious, and then the next people next to them laugh. And
yeah.
if you have like these big gaps between people, then yeah, people do sort of start looking around a little bit, and it's almost like people need permission to laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that happens more if you've got like everyone sort of on the same wavelength. So having everyone sort of together in a closed room and having like the seats close together, and then people can sort of feel it more, and then they'll let go more.
Yeah.
During COVID, it was really hard because we were all spaced out, and that's just not a good setup for
No, but
comedies.
that means, okay, now I'm having an idea. Like, if we are, let's say, wanting to improve, let's say, our communication skills, we need to go closer.
Yeah,
That's a great metaphor, because it's true. We need to get more close to the other person. So it's not about me talking by myself, right? It's about me connecting and getting closer to someone else.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what it's all about. It's all about connection, and also this whole mimicking thing, like
Mm.
mimicking the mirror. And if everyone's sort of in rapport, then it's like if somebody yawns, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Infectious, and then everyone
Yeah.
else starts yawning.
Yes.
It's the same with laughter. It kind of has this ripple effect.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this ripple effect, and so yeah,
That's why sometimes you guys choose someone from the audience to pick, or to make a joke about it. That,
to create a connection.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay, okay.
that's a real comedy.
And
That's a real sort of technique in comedy is to have this interaction with the audience. So, for example, I went to see a fantastic show last night. I saw Jake Lambert. I don't know if you know him. Absolutely brilliant.
mm,
And he was sort of chatting to this guy in the audience, and he was asking, "How old are your children?" And he got their ages wrong, which I thought was funny. But then later on in the set, he kept referring back to it and going, "Well, you wouldn't know," and it's like an in joke.
yeah,
So everybody who was in the room would have heard that interaction. He's connecting with the audience, but then he refers back to it, and everyone understands because,
what is going on?
and it becomes an in joke, and that's a great way of connecting people. It's like if you're laughing and joking with your friends, and you've
Yeah,
got a group of friends, and you all talk about something you did last week, that only you know about, and it becomes funny. And if a stranger walked in and joined the conversation, they'd be like,
yeah,
"What's going?"
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the same thing when you tell a story that someone was with you, then you laugh in a different way. That no
Exactly.
one was there with you, and then, yeah, 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 yeah. So what, um, when you are, for instance, teaching this, for comedy, what is the main things? Because I think we also sometimes put things in boxes, like, oh, I don't want to study, stand-up comedy because I'm never going to do stand-up comedy. I say, yeah, but it's not about that, right? It's not about that you are going to a stage to do that. Is the principle sometimes is to lose yourself a little bit, to create something that other people can engage. And I think promoting laughter is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, yeah, it's interesting. A couple of points there that you came up with. So a lot of people come to me; they don't particularly want to become a stand-up comedian,
Yeah.
but they have a message and they want to sit on stage. One of the sweetest things was recently. I had a student from Korea
Hmm.
who had who had gone to live in America and was adopted by an American family. And he did stand-up comedy with me, did two courses, beginners and then intermediate, because he wanted to sort of dedicate a show to them,
Oh,
sort of to show his gratitude. And I think his sort of adopted sister was getting married, so
oh
he
no.
did a whole show sort of about her and joking about her so that he could film it and send it to her. So everyone has their different sort of reasons for doing it. Some people just don't want to do comedy, but they want to be more confident on the stage,
Yeah.
or they have to speak in their work, and then they want to become more confident.
Yeah,
You know,
but also sometimes less serious, because I think sometimes people mistake things like, oh, I'm doing a presenter, for instance, for a company. I'm going to present. I need to be serious, or I need to be, yeah, you will become boring most part of the times. So that
absolutely.
sometimes using also this structure from humor to make your content more engaging, right?
Absolutely. The thing is, what are you doing when you're standing in front of people? You're eliciting a reaction.
Yeah.
That's essentially what you're doing. Otherwise, you might as well be talking to the wall. So you you know, so you want the person you're talking to react in a with an emotion or
Yeah.
with a reaction. Now, it could be something very, very, very serious,
Yeah.
but you want to engage them. You want to have that impact. So unless you're talking about something super serious and dark, why not elicit a little bit of comedy?
Yeah.
Make them laugh because it creates that connection. Laughter creates a connection, and that's what you're doing is you're creating that
Yeah.
connection with somebody. It's like, for example, in company presentations, if somebody mentions, I don't know, the fact that the dishwasher's never emptied, and people laugh because they all know because they're all in that situation together.
Yeah.
You're having this little in joke about the company, and that happens all the time,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I mean, I had a really nice corporate gig 2 weeks ago, and I had a phone call with the person who booked me, and he told me all these little in
Yeah.
jokes about the directors and in jokes about the founders of the company. So of course I knew a few things, and I just sort of dropped it into my presenting, and the whole room was laughing. I obviously didn't even get the joke because I wasn't there, but they'd sort of told me sort of certain words to use, nicknames and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Work because it's an in joke, and that's what you're doing is you're creating a connection, and it's that feeling of belonging. And I think
Yeah.
that's what people are looking for is that connection with somebody. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think humor is a great way of doing it. I mean, I got a really nice example. So I've just been asked to do a workshop. I haven't told you this yet, but this is really cool. We work a lot with War Child,
Yeah.
and they want to have a team building exercise. There's a small team in War Child, and they want to do something as a team. And they were looking online, and they found this workshop. Like I can't remember what it was called, but it was with another company about uh, using comedy in the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they said to me, "Oh, could you do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, for sure." So I'm building this workshop for them. These are people that are dealing with, you know,
Ah,
horrific stuff
drama.
on a daily basis. I mean, War Child, I don't even want to, you could,
Yeah.
we all know what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to them, and I was like, this is going to be great because it just gives you that escapism. And that's another thing.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of escape from reality, not laughing at reality, but just giving yourself a break.
But
Having
it's
a
a
laughter is a release as well.
yeah, but it's also a reframing.
Yeah,
Technically, it's a reframing, right? So if you are able to see things with a different perspective, that is what sometimes humor, a lot of times humor does, is to give a new meaning to something that I never saw that from that angle, or I never get that perspective. that is what humor does,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's an amazing thing. For instance, when we are talking about um, emotional intelligence, or when we are talking about mental well-being, is the possibility of creating these new meanings,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and if they are fun, or at least a little bit more lighter, or that's great. And I think, yeah, if people are passing and dealing every day with a lot of drama, is necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an emotional release as well.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
just that actual physical act of laughing. It's
Oh,
very close to crying, and I love it when you laugh so much.
I was going to say
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sometimes you laugh so hard that you start crying,
Yeah.
you go from that happens sometimes with me, but I also with some somatic workshops that I do, people start laughing, so yoga, laugh yoga,
Yes.
some people do start laughing so loud, so hard, that they really start crying the same way,
Yeah.
hard, and you go like, wow. And is a kind of is really a releasing
Yeah.
moment, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
It's really healthy for you, I think, laughter. I think
yeah,
also, like you're saying about reframing, seeing things in different ways. And I also think, like, I don't want to get political now, but a lot of what's going on in the news in America, and you see a lot of cartoons coming across,
yeah,
a lot of memes, a lot of jokes, and
yeah,
it's our way of processing something that's quite horrific,
yeah,
but it's making people think as
yeah.
well. And it's
And one of the
this
things that
climate.
is, yeah, one of the things that is study is about the health, the well-being of a society, is when a society can laugh from what is happening with them,
Yeah,
creating, laughter and humor around what is happening with them, without being sarcastic.
yeah.
And that sometimes is where we see humor failing. uh, is that people become, they think that are doing humor, but they are being just sarcastic. And that's, for me, I don't know, if you feel the same way.
I like sarcasm. I think it can be really fun. It's very close. Sort of being sarcastic is also sort of can be quite a nice way of kind of delivering a message in a fun way that people have to kind of really think about what you mean. It's
Yeah, I
very
don't.
close to satire. Very close to
Yeah, I don't
satire.
know. I don't know if it's because I don't understand very well sarcasm, so I need. For me, it doesn't really work. Maybe, but I think humor is a different thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if you agree with me, but at least from my understanding, sarcasm is one thing, humor is another thing. Of course, you can use sarcasm in humor.
yes,
That,
yes.
in my case, doesn't resonate, doesn't work. I go like,
Think I'm British though. I'm British.
no, exactly.
We love a bit
For
of
me, it doesn't work.
sarcasm. I
I go
think
like,
that's what we're better
okay,
at.
okay.
That's because
Um,
people can't say it like it is, so they have to kind of
yeah,
got
yeah,
around it. So
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
we'll just be sarcastic.
yeah. Okay, and let me ask you one thing. What was for you the most you know difficult thing when you are doing, because doing live gigs and shows, and you do that a lot.
Yeah.
So in a week, you can be like doing it for 6 7 days, or seven moments. So that's a lot. There's a lot of hours there, and a lot of audiences. What was the one that was more like difficult, or a challenge, or that you needed to, really change your approach?
Like work wise, what's the most challenging
Yeah,
gig? I mean, Edinburgh Festival is probably the biggest challenge ever.
yeah.
Um,
And what
and
is
I
that?
can't wait. It's for me, it's the marathon
Yeah,
comedian people. Like, I'm not sporty at all. I'm just imagining it's like doing a marathon. I don't know. I can just about barely run for a bus. But like people that run, people that like going for a run and they go for
yeah,
a regular run and they keep themselves fit. what are they training for? They're training for that marathon where they're going to
Yeah.
run for like however many miles. And yeah, for me, that's
42.
my marathon. Yeah, 42 miles, 42 kilometers.
Yeah.
That Edinburgh for me is my marathon. So Edinburgh Fringe Festival is where you perform your show daily,
Wow.
25 days in a row. I take one day off, so not
Okay.
24 shows.
Yeah.
24 shows literally every single day, same time, doing my solo show. That is tough, but I love it. I love the challenge of it. And what I love is that the progression of it so quickly. So obviously every time you perform,
Yeah.
you reflect, and this is what I love. You reflect. I often film myself or voice record, and you look back and go, okay, what could I have done differently? How can I tweak this? You're always tweaking your jokes. You're listening. Okay, this joke didn't land. Why didn't it land? Maybe sometimes you just need to change the word order. Sometimes you need to leave a pause and then deliver your punchline, and it goes from having no laughs to a big laugh. So
Yeah.
you're constantly tweaking. Doing Edinburgh Festival, you're doing the same show every single day for 24 days. You've got that opportunity to tweak it on a daily basis. So the progression is quite fast from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. And that's what I like. But that for me is the biggest challenge in
Yeah,
comedy,
because
boot
it's
camp.
detail, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
looking for the detail. And I particularly like that because I'm a person, and sometimes people, I remember that a lot of times my people that are going around with me to do talks, or you know sometimes they get a little bit like, whoa, because I think about everything a, a lot more than normal people, I think.
Yeah.
So I think about the colors that I'm going to use. I think about, the hair that I'm going to take. I think about the words that I'm going to say, of course. But also I think about how I'm going to say that. Like the things that you were saying, like the small pause,
Yeah.
when you go for the silence, when you look around. And I think about that all, you know, and um, and I think sometimes people think, oh, you just come and deliver, and it's like, yes and no. Yes and no, because of course now I think in a way that is not like I'm stopping for a week to think about it, right? It's much more automatic, and it's much more in tune. So it's very like, if I have this message and I want to get this emotion, I know what I need to have. But I think also people tend to see as, oh, this is all talent. And it's not all talent, is
No,
work.
yeah, it's work. It's work. And because people have also said, well, you can't teach stand-up comedy, can you? You can't teach it. Um, I think you can teach a lot of techniques. It's what you do with it. And so
Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into it.
yeah.
A lot of thought. It's not, it's not all happy coincidences.
Exactly. Oh my God, I wrote something about that. About not like, it's not a bunch of random stuff. It's like someone that decided to stop, write something, think about it, and not, I think also thinking about, how do I want people to receive this?
Hmm.
So it's not enough that you find it funny,
Yeah,
right? Is that okay? I find this funny, I find this interesting, but how other people are going to receive this? So it's like
exactly.
this combination, right?
Yeah, and a lot of that is trial and error, to be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes you say something in your head and you think it's so funny, and you say it out loud, and everyone's like,
Would
"What?"
for
And
me,
and the opposite. Sometimes you might say something that you don't think is funny, and
yeah,
people laugh. I had a show last week. I had a students that graduated, so I
yeah.
teach a 7-week course. At the end of the 7 weeks, they do a performance, and this girl came up to me afterwards, and she was like, "That was fun," but they laughed in so many places where I didn't
I didn't.
want them to. And it's like, yeah, sometimes you can be funny unintentionally.
I'm more that type.
Yeah,
I'm like, why people are laughing right now? Like,
yeah,
what happened here? What did I just said? I have a friend of mine that says, Ligia, you don't know even what are you doing? It's like, it's so that people start laughing and are like, oh, okay, this was like, oh, okay. But then if someone asks me to repeat it, I cannot do it.
No,
So it's coming really from
in
a
the
place
moment.
of, like, yeah. So one thing that I would like to ask you, what when you I don't know if you this also happens to you, like, you be yeah, I'm going to project a little bit what happened with me, okay?
Hmm.
I don't know if it happened with you the same. When I started, let's call it performing. So I started with theater very young, and then I did other stuff, and I'm doing this for some years now, even professionally. Um, I believe that I became, in general, better in relationships.
Mm.
Not only in communication, because that will be natural, all right? So you are working daily in bringing the best words, best, okay. Improving in communication will be like the natural consequence, okay? But I feel that I became much better also with people in general,
Mm.
like the way that I relate with people.
Yeah.
I don't know if because I myself feel more confident, so I'm not shaming out on what I need to say and how I need to say it. Um, I don't know if it's because I'm also willing to observe what is going on with the other person, that I make my speech connecting with them. I'm thinking out loud. Um, do you feel that as well? Like, this is not only, a communication tool or a communication improvement, but is also a relationship. It's always people to people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because that's what it is. And even though it's for a short time,
Yeah,
like, a comedy gig, you might go up there and just do 8 minutes, but in that short time, it's you creating some kind of connection
bonding,
with
a
people,
bonding with people.
bonding,
Yeah,
and you're going to have a shit. And I've seen that. You can have a really bad time if you just stand there and recite,
yeah,
and I've seen this. People that just stand and recite, and they've got very, very funny jokes, but they just
yeah,
stand and recite. It's going deeper than that. It's about connecting with people. And yes, I feel like my relationships have got better because it's made me a better communicator.
yeah,
The other thing I think also is that I'm now a lot more sort of picky of who I want to spend my time with, and I also find myself now in such a world that I'm surrounded by people that love comedy and do comedy and produce comedy, and so that tends to be where I'm finding my connections. And I think that's something as well about finding a tribe, and because
yeah,
for me, laughter is just a day with is a way of dealing with life. It's just having that positive, not necessarily a positive attitude, but an attitude where you're willing to just have a laugh when times are bad and just sort of, or just on an everyday. It's just a great way of going through life. So it's kind of become a way of life as well. And I think
yeah,
that as well with connecting with people. And also, it's given me a lot more confidence.
yeah,
So, I'm quite happy to walk into a room full of strangers and just start chatting to people and finding connections. And the other thing that it's taught me is everyone has a story. And I find that really fascinating. Every single person has a story. You could go to go somewhere and you meet a stranger and you might think, oh, they've got nothing interesting to say. Everyone has a story.
yeah,
When you start chatting to people, you just find the most incredible. I mean, I've heard the most incredible things,
yeah,
stories about people. I'm like, wow.
yeah,
And you're not going to get that unless you get that connection. You go deep and you start talking about things, and
yeah,
and sometimes things come out in humor. So yeah, definitely, it's helped with relationships and connections. And
yeah. Because I also sometimes think that people become like, oh, I'm going to, like I said before, like, I'm going to do this because I want to use it. And it's not, sometimes the consequences are not, so direct that we can think about it. But I think the relationships that we can create when we are, because what basically transferring whatever we are talking and what everything that we are talking right now, we are talking about changing perspective and
Yeah.
being flexible enough to accept a different perspective. When we are laughing of something, we are literally, and that is what is a punchline, is bringing a logic that we are surprised. So the emotion that is there, I like to do this, you know that, right? I like to decode the thing, or
Yeah.
bring decode to the thing. So what happens is that the main emotion is surprise, because it's something that we were not expecting as a
Yeah.
meaning, or we are not expecting as a result, and it was not a natural result, something like that. So I think is when we are willing to enter that world of being changing perspectives, allowing surprise to the room, when we are open to see, okay, what is the result of my communication? And that's what a stand-up comedy person does, right? Like, oh, I do this, what is the result? Do I get a laughter or not?
Yeah. Exactly.
So they are looking for the result. And
Yeah.
when you are every day, with this, yes, becomes your way of living.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, we have a Rachel and then we have another Rachel. No, it's like you need to become that, because you are basically doing that 24 hours per 24 hours,
Yeah.
right?
It's frustrating sometimes because sometimes I think, can't I switch my brain off? Because I'll be cycling along and I'll see a sign, and then my brain is starting to think, oh, why is that funny? And there's,
Yeah,
it's so stupid. And you sort of,
but
people
that's
say things,
that's
and you're like, that's, you could turn that into comedy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But with me it happens the same.
Yeah.
I go around, and for me, sometimes people say, wow, you have a life. And like, I have the most boring life that someone can imagine. Yeah, that's the words of my oldest daughter. Um, so that I'm really, the most boring person. I don't go out almost like partying. I don't do that. I don't see television. So I'm really boring. I sleep at 8 o'clock in the night. So, but the fact that I go around and I see what is happening makes me have a lot of stories,
Yeah.
much more stories that a lot of people that have a busy life, they do a lot, but they don't bring it in,
Yeah.
so um, sometimes my friends say that, like, you cannot have a busy life, because the way that you connect with ever, like, you will be, exhausted soon. So that's why my life is very flat, because at the same time it's so full of stories, is so full of things that I see. And I think that happens with when we are doing this,
Yeah. Yeah.
as a way of living, right? So
Yeah.
we are not just passing by. We
Yeah.
are really looking for the details and how this can become a story. How can this become a joke?
Yeah. You become more analytical, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Did
so
you ever had a joke that you did about something that you were not expecting? Like, I remember one time I read someone saying, I'm a writer, so pay attention that everything that you say to me can be used.
Mm.
I will use everything that. Did you have had a situation that in the beginning you thought, this is a situation that I didn't like, that I was not nice, and then you're like, oh, wait, this can become a joke?
I think that's where most comedy comes from. A lot of there's a saying in comedy. It's comedy is tragedy plus time. And
Oh, I love
that's
that.
like a formula for comedy is tragedy plus time. So stuff that's really frustrating at the time can
Oh,
become comedy later on. For example, I do a bit of a sideline. My sort of side gig is tour tourism, a little bit of tour
yeah.
guiding. I do that. The reason I do that is to save the money to go to Edinburgh, and I help my friend out. She's a comedian. She runs electric bike tours,
Oh, okay.
and I had this girl that just couldn't ride a bike. which is not an ideal thing if you're on a bike tour. I was trying to like coach her, and I was like, oh, do I let her go or not? And she was really struggling to turn the corners. She was fine when she was going straight, but trying to turn the corners was really hard. And we were in the countryside,
Oh my
and
God.
the path sort of curved around, but in front there was like a nice sort of basically a stream, a ditch of water, and she just didn't steer, and she just kept going and going and going and going, and literally rode her bike, e-bike, into the water, and just the bike disappeared. Yeah, I love the way you're laughing. Exactly. At the time, this was not funny. At the time, I'm like, oh my God, you've just ruined an electric bike. She's standing there covered in mud. The rest of the group are going, what's going on? She gets out and goes, yeah, no, I think I've finished with the tour now. I'm like, you think? It's like you've just ruined an e-bike. I think you are finished. And at the time, it was really stressful because I had to get her back, and then I had to go pick in the night time. I had to pick up the e-bike and cycle it home without the battery because obviously the battery had been in water, and it was horrible. But yeah, now we can laugh about it. Now it's like, yeah, and now that becomes comedy. Now
I'm seeing the the,
it was just, and somebody took a picture. One of the other people on the tour took a picture, and a
but
colleague of
that,
mine.
yeah. This kind of situations that sometimes that happens a lot with my kids, right? They are doing something, and I know, like, okay, they are going to get hurt, or and you cannot really prevent. But I'm already laughing because I know that some after a while it's going to be funny, and
Yeah,
I know to laugh. Oh my God, I cannot imagine the situation. But
yeah.
yeah, that's okay. I
There you
love
go.
that
This
frame.
is what happens. Tragedy plus time. So at the time, it feels like a stressful situation.
Yeah,
Afterwards, you can have a good laugh about it.
yeah. Okay, Rachel, just to end this conversation, because I think we will have more.
Yes.
What will be your, let's say, I don't, that I don't like advices, but what will be your main takeaway um, about the process that you went through? So by starting doing it, and now you are doing this, every day. So let became your life. What is your biggest takeaway from here, from
From
this?
everything, be
Yeah.
authentic. Be authentic. That's the most biggest takeaway I've had, and a real eye opener for me. I loved the job I had when I was working in travel and tourism for a corporate. But I never truly felt myself. And I think since I've been doing this, I just every day I wake up, and I think that's why so many people say to me, Rachel, you're doing too much, because
Yeah.
I just I'm loving what I'm doing. So I'm living, breathing. I do work a lot of hours, but I love it. And I feel like it's me. And when I talk, it's me. And when I'm telling jokes, they're mine. The stories are mine. And I think that message goes through everything I do. I I suppose it's an age thing as well, but I don't put up with bullshit anymore. I don't try and pretend I'm somebody I'm not. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm the most organized person in the world, right? The reason this camera is angled like this is so you cannot see. I mean, I'd love you to see what the crap around me, right? But I'm embracing that. I'm embracing the fact that I'm scatty and that I'm chaotic and that I'm not particularly organized. I'm embracing the fact that I've got these stories. I talk about me, and this is my message to comedians as well, and to people on doing public speaking, and to everyone I work with is you've all got something unique and authentic to say. Be yourself. Don't try and make something up. I've seen comedians stand on stage and give this story, which was admittedly funny, but I've said to them afterwards, I found that really unbelievable. And they're like, no, it's all 100% made up. And I think there needs to be a seed of you in everything you do.
Yeah.
So whether you're doing comedy, whether you're doing public speaking, whether you're having a one-on-one conversation, whether you're producing something, it needs to come from you, and it needs to feel right for you. And the way you live your life has to also feel right for you.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's been such a big message for me the last few years is be authentic, and live your own life how it suits you.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
I just love it. You know that that's my main thing as well. Is like, because it's life can be already hard, and
Yeah,
it's not, we don't need to put this in a pink thing. It's like sometimes life, is going to test you in again.
yeah,
So, but if you upon that need to pretend, I for me it's like I cannot even imagine the energy. I don't have that energy. I don't have enough energy for that. So I totally agree with you, and I hope people can also see that even you could transform something that's for so many years was, a critic point or a criticism point. People were criticizing that you talk too much or you did too much, and
exactly.
you made that healthy, in a healthy way. You use it.
Yeah,
So I think that is. I wish everyone could do that about their own, life and their own being. So thank you so much for this conversation. We are recording this on a Monday morning. I know that you probably had your weekend super full. Uh, so I know that. I know that. So thank you for having us, and now take your time to rest. And
thank
thank you.
you.
Take
Thank
care of
you.
yourself.
Yeah. It was great. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. Bye.
Bye.